Hey everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the SaaS Sessions Podcast. Today we have Satya Ganni on the show with us. Satya is a CEO and founder of Userflow and Beamer, right? So two great products that I'm sure like all of you must have used in some stage. So Userflow, just to share in like one line, Userflow as it is in the name, it's a user onboarding and guides platform for SaaS and digital first businesses, right? And Beamer on the other side, it's more on in the similar lines, but it's like a product adoption and engagement platform for product leaders and product marketers, right? So, hey Satya, such a pleasure to have you on the show.
No, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Sunil. Yep.
Awesome, great. So Satya, like I gave a very short intro about you and Userflow and Beamer, right? So why don't you tell us more about yourself? Like, how's your journey been into the SaaS ecosystem, and maybe then a couple of lines on what Beamer is and what Userflow is.
Got it. Thanks, Sunil. Yeah, I think my background has predominantly been a SaaS founder, operator, executive for the last
Hmm.
close to 2 decades. Funny part is I didn't end up in SaaS. I started with something called as an ASP model that was a precursor to SaaS, right? ASP allows you to kind of host and manage your own servers and data. So kind of, as I said, it's a precursor to SaaS, where you have to do customization, licensing, setup, all of it, but either on a single machine or multiple machines and deliver over the internet. So kind of started there. That was my first company, and since then it evolved into SaaS. So as I said, for the last decade and a half, I've been predominantly into SaaS, selling across different market segments, whether it's enterprise, mid-market, SMB, and it's been fascinating so far. Yeah. Mhm.
Nice, great. That's a great journey, Satya. But like something that I feel
So,
everybody should know about is that you have you have founded and you have been the CEO of like six companies in the past, right? Like something
mhm,
that I came
mhm.
across from your LinkedIn, and this is previously to Beamer and Userflow, right? It's like six companies you have been a founder for, and I'm sure like there were
Sure,
some
sure,
exits
sure.
from there. So, like, what keeps you going, and what makes you feel like, hey, I'm like, I just want to, build a product and build a company, and because that's really crazy to be like, a founder of like six companies and now like seven and eight one.
Yeah. Thanks, Sunil. I think, first of all, at the core, I like to consider myself as a problem solver.
Hmm.
As a problem solver, I like solving problems, whether that's on the engineering side, product side, go to market, right? So I have a natural tint of curiosity to identify problems and solve them. So I think some of those solutions eventually, lead to birth of new companies, right? Funny part is, I was a mechanical engineer by education and a self-taught programmer. So I thought, how can I marry both? Because software engineers has Visual Studio, mechanical engineers has CAD tools. So for a
Hmm.
long time, I was thinking, how do I marry both? And then I came up with this idea that, hey, we need a Visual Studio like tool for mechanical engineers. So that
Hmm.
was my first company, right? So I think it all starts with the problem. I think what keeps me going is, I think the technology space is super exciting, always evolving, moves fast,
Hmm.
and it also scales fast. If
Hmm.
there are right guardrails, it also scales fast, right? So I think these are the different things that keep me going. A lot of exciting problems to solve, using technology as the leverage to build or scale, and so many opportunities that we have before us. Yeah.
Definitely. That's a very interesting aspect, Satya. And given like our today's topic, right? Like how AI is like reshaping
Sure.
PLG and user experiences. Again, like PLG has been like it's not new. It's been around for many years now. But it's definitely like AI is reinventing like the PLG experience for a lot of companies, and um, and I feel like Userflow and Beamer are at the core of it, right? So
Yeah,
like what do you feel like what's that
sure.
role, right, of AI in enhancing these PLG strategies?
Yeah, yeah. No, great question again. I think if you look at product-led growth, it's predominantly a funnel-driven model, right?
Mm,
Usually there are five stages of this funnel. There is acquisition, there is activation, there is engagement, there is conversion. So usually you have these, four phases. I would say AI is definitely influencing every stage of the PLG funnel. Like for example, let's take acquisition, right? If you're adopting organic strategies to drive better visitor to sign up conversion, or a better time to sign up, or a reduction in CAC, so you can use AI to generate the content, publish the content, and drive visitors back, right? Second thing is even the personalization of the website or landing pages. So for example, if you sell to two three different user personas, and when you use the content to drive them to a website or landing pages, you can actually personalize the landing pages or the websites that suit to their needs,
mm,
right? So that's acquisition. But even when you look at activation, as I said, if you have a large volume of users coming in, how do you cohort them appropriately to say, hey, for each cohort I want to accelerate the time to value, I want to improve the
mm,
activation rate. Similarly, so I think at every step of the PLG funnel, you can use AI-led tools or techniques to be able to personalize and drive better conversion. So that's how I would think about it, right?
mm.
PLG is all funnel driven, and if you can think about AI-led strategies at each stage of the funnel, I think that's what would produce value. Mhm.
Nice, nice. That's I think that would bring a lot of um you know seamlessness as to the entire user flow, right? Where what they see an ad somewhere, which is again personalized, then they come to a landing page which is personalized, they sign up, is again personalized, and then they go through the activation and onboarding, as you mentioned, which is like again very personalized to them or their role or their industry, like different levers that you can pull, right? So but I'm sure like sometimes this personalization is driven by data, right? And data
Yes.
that you get from, let's say, intent platforms, or something like an Apollo or ZooInfo, or maybe you have collected it
Yep.
through Crunchbase, or multiple sources, right? And
Yes.
you never know, like like how accurate is the data, right? Because you're getting it. So and if you
Yes.
solely like very much rely on this level of personalization which you are collecting, or you're organizing it from data that you're collecting from multiple sources, the personalization can go for a toss as well, right? So it's sometimes like obviously it can be great if implemented correctly, but because of like data not being right might be like one problem, but there can be like several other problems where it can go wrong as well, right? So where do you think in your experience where you've seen like PLG really win, and in some cases where it does fail?
Yeah, yeah. I think my personal belief is that still there are so many misnomers about what PLG is and how it works and why it works, right? I think the number one precursor to PLG is you absolutely have to be in a massive market. That's number one, right? So if you're selling in a very very niche market, then PLG is not the best fit for you. So obviously you want to be in a wider and a large market. I think the second precursor is that you want to have some elements of virality in your app or collaboration, right? So for example, products like Slack or Zoom is a perfect example, which is what we are on, right? So I can't do Zoom talking to myself, right? I need a person on the other side of it. So that means that I have to invite you, and you have to be part of the conversation. So I think certain products have these natural ingredients, whether you call Miro, whether you call Slack or Zoom, and wide majority of SaaS products don't have this virality, right? So first of all, I think we have to figure out the misnomers of PLG, and do it. Second thing is, I think interfaces are changing very rapidly. I think we'll see more and more of. I think right now we have this classic application structure model where you have a front end that's driven by components and UIs. I think it will change to more conversational interfaces. It will change to more insight driven conversational interfaces, right? So I think that shift, we're in the early days of making that shift happen. As I said, PLG as a standalone is one aspect of it, but I think you have to look at holistically in terms of your applications, the experience to the end users, and some of the metrics. I think we are in a moving ship here, especially with the AI coming into the mix, right? So still early days. Yeah.
Nice, nice. That's a good way to look at it, right? But taking a step back and just like talking about that data that we're collecting, like more on that, right? You obviously cannot control the quality of data that you get from these third party platforms, right? But you generally, like as you mentioned correctly in a PLG offering, right? Where these are more open tools where there is a sort of virality built into the picture, and and these tools, like all the ones that you mentioned, right? Even Slack or Zoom or Miro and Figma and all of these, like they have an onboarding process, right? Or any PLG tool will have an onboarding process, right? And during that onboarding process you collect like uh, some information about like the user, right? Typically, what's their role like? Where do they hear about you?
Yeah.
What is the use case that they're trying to trying your product out for, right? What department do they come under, right? And maybe some more, right, here and there. Obviously, you have their email, so you can figure out like what company do they work for, what industry, how big is the company, what industry they belong to, and some more information there.
Yes.
But I've seen often that like companies do collect this information, but they don't necessarily personalize the product, right, based on that information. Just to
Yes.
give an example, if and for the listeners as well, if you have signed up on Canva ever, right, like very recently, so they do have a very good onboarding, right? Like you sign up on Canva, they ask you like what's your role, they ask you like what do you want to do with Canva, and some things, and obviously they know what's my industry, they have all that information about my role, my responsibilities, my use case. But still, when I land on Canva, they still like show me
Yeah.
there is nothing like personalized in the home screen,
Yes.
right, for me,
Yes. Yes.
versus let's say you sign up, like Satya signs up, or I sign up, or somebody else signs
Sure.
up, like all of us see the same home screen. Then what's the point of collecting
Yes.
that data, right?
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
makes me think,
Yes.
right? So how can companies, in your experience, Satya, like how can companies go from just not just collecting data, but also like taking actions on using this data?
Yeah, yeah. As I mentioned, Sunil, I think we're in the very, very early days. I think you see a lot of use cases in the B2C world, right? I usually, whenever people are looking at some trends in B2B, I point them to B2C. I would say, look at what B2C has been doing, because in couple of years, B2B SaaS would very well emulate, right? So that's where even when you log into some of the social apps, whether it's Instagram, Access, I think that's a personalized experience, right? So they're using data well to really personalize the personalize the experience or the feed, right? I would say in terms of SaaS, we're still very early days of bringing that level of personalization. And I'm sure whether it's Canva or somebody else, they're deeply thinking about, hey, what is the problem the user is trying to solve? How can we personalize the experience? And maybe the answer is sometimes personalization is not required, because he's trying to do an activity to derive an outcome. So let's go stay focused on that. Let's go stay focused on that, right? So that is also possible, right?
Hmm.
But I think more and more you will see applications, especially the borderlines of prosumer, self-serve, and
Yeah.
everything else that start to span over. And I think majority of the PLG companies is not limited to a geo. Like Zoom doesn't sell in US alone, right? It is used by users across the globe, right? Across the globe. I think when you see that huge diversity of users coming from various geos, various languages, etc., I think personalization would play a big role. So I think yeah, the SaaS apps would evolve. We're just in the early days of that experience. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. But again, like what what is the problem that you feel which is
Sure.
there, which hasn't allowed like SaaS apps to like be at that stage, right? Because like see,
Yeah.
Instagram
Yeah.
has been doing these personalization, like
Sure.
not
Sure.
only
Sure.
Instagram, but the B2C or D2C platforms, right? Like even e-commerce, right? Like the more
Yes.
like you go to Amazon and you keep buying like more and more stuff, and then
Yes.
like the feed kind of keeps changing to a more personalized feeds as to like what you would buy, right? So my feed,
Yes. Yes.
Amazon feed would look like very different from your feed, and that's
Yes.
the same aspect for any B2C platform as you mentioned,
Mhm.
right? And this has been there since like many years, right? Even before like AI came into the picture, right? So like now with AI into the picture, I think it should be more easier and more you know easier to get, basically more easier to get into
Sure. Sure.
doing something like this. So what is it that you
Mhm.
feel, in your opinion, is stopping the companies? Is it like
Yeah.
because they don't have the right data, they don't have the right tools, they don't have the right process or systems, or like what is your opinion on this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think this one of the secret sauce of many PLG companies is a extremely strong foundation in data,
Hmm.
like every bit and piece of data, right? So we talked about the funnel, we talked about funnel conversion, funnel stages, all of it, right? So a lot of that is experimentation is driven by data, and one is of course you have the data about the user, the org, the corresponding org that he belongs to, and etc. Second thing is, I think the actions that user do. That's where I think tools like product analytics are very important, because what happens
Hmm.
is when you get a first time user, his actions in the app are very critical. Very critical, because that tell you something that he or she might not have told you in a Zoom call or something, right? Is he using the app? What features is he using? How deeply the feature is adopted? Why is he not adopting the feature, right? Is it a discovery problem? Is it a value problem, etc., right? So again, you have to use that product data combined with the combined with his behavioral data on the website, combined with his firmographic data. Firmographic
Hmm.
means again, the location, the org, and where he belongs. So unless you combine all three types of data, you have to combine the firmographic, the behavioral data that he exhibits on the website and blog and other sources, or to your email campaign. The third thing is in-app, and I
Hmm.
think you have to combine all of it to really understand, hey, what is the user trying to accomplish, right?
Hmm.
Why did somebody from a Mastercard signed up on this particular application? What is it trying to behave? So the foundation for a lot of scaled PLG companies is data, and that's where I think you probably need a data store or whatever, so that you're able to bring in all this data together and then understand the account or the user, and then you can
Hmm.
think about personalization or anything like that. So I think the secret sauce to a lot of PLG, very successful PLG companies, is data, massive data. Yeah.
Hmm. Nice, nice. That's that for sure. I mean, like for
Sure.
any like motion, whether it's PLG or sales led or something else, right? Like I feel like data is like at the core of it for everything, right? Like
Yes.
to help you take informed decisions, right? So
Yes.
and I know we talked about, and you also mentioned a little bit like a bunch of tools, right? That generally makes all of this possible, like makes all the PLG possible, right? So um what do you think are some of these platforms, or what do you think some of these tools that,
Sure,
help companies put together this whole PLG motion, right?
sure,
We say
sure.
like data, and then data tools is like one aspect or one category,
Yes,
but then I'm sure
yes.
like, there's like a whole lot of other platforms that are required, and I'm sure like, get Beamer, like Beamer and Userflow are part of that tool stack. So
Hmm.
yeah, maybe you can share more on the tools that
Sure,
enable
sure.
PLG.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think I would broadly classify into two buckets, right? Especially for product teams that is looking to drive, better activation, better engagement, better conversion, right? There is the quantitative side of the house, and then there is the qualitative side of the house, right? And combining both is super, super important. And on the quantitative side, I would put something like product analytics, which is a must have for every B2B SaaS PMs, right? And then you have things like, user onboarding or, product adoption and product engagement platforms. The third is what I call experimentation, and feature flagging, because you would want to run experimentation within your own application to say, hey, are people signing up converting better through path number one or through path number two? So experimentation is a very big piece of it. Fourth thing is the feedback. I think the ability to collect qualitative feedback, about the experience itself, what is working, what is not working, etc., etc. So I would classify this toolkit into 4 or 5 pillars. One, there is the usage aspect of it, which is driven from product analytics tool. There is the experimentation aspect of it, is which is driven by experimentation, feature flagging, all of those tooling. Third is you have the engagement side of the house, which is where we play onboarding, feedback, driving adoption. And fourth is, there are tooling like, session replay that allows you to watch user sessions and figure out, hey, which users have stuck through the journey, etc. So usually there are 4 or 5 pillars that are quite important, especially in context of B2C, B2B SaaS. I think B2C is a whole different world, because the level of infrastructure and the tooling they require to personalize the experience.
Hmm.
I think that has evolved significantly. I think B2B SaaS is just catching up. Yeah.
Nice. Very, very interesting. And I think great set of tools, and good pillars. Like I've not personally been a part of like a PLG motion. Just fairly worked with a few companies on the
Sure.
side for that, and we did have like same pillars, I would say. Um, that would help us like, enable the PLG or drive the PLG motion for the product, right? So great stuff there. So before we move on to the last section of the episode, which is the lightning round,
Mhm.
I know you touched upon like, hey, we are in the very early stages of the whole PLG scenario, right? So
Sure.
what do you feel like, what's next for PLG then? Like, in your
Yeah.
opinion, like, okay, what's the future of PLG lies in the next few years?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think again, companies like Atlassian probably 2 decades ago kicked off this trend, right? And more companies have been adopting this trend. I think a broader thesis is, if you look at a typical sales lead, they have high CAC and high LTV, right? That's how
Hmm.
sales lead works. If you take a typical PLG, probably they have lower CAC, but have medium LTV, right? Sometimes they might get lucky and have very high LTV. So that's the fundamental nemesis of, whether you go sales led or PLG, and both are phenomenal. I would feel that a vast majority of the PLG companies go into a hybrid mode. Hybrid mode, in a sense, they would have product-led growth and product-led sales. So which is like a sales assist motion, right? You might not have sellers on the street, on the field, but you might have sellers within your own office or work remotely to serve the customer. So I would say 99% of the PLG companies go into a hybrid model, right? Where you have product-led growth, which addresses your self-serve users, and then you have a product-led sales motion where your sales and solutioning team is helping customers resolve the problem. So I would frame that model as something like an inbound-led sales assist, right? So you're still
Hmm.
driving the leads inbound, but you're using the sales assist to do it. It's not for say classic PLG. It's not self-serve, but I would call it product-led sales. So I
Got
think at the intersection of PLG and PLS is where the future lies. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I think this is something like a lot of companies like have come into this specific category which enable product-led sales as well, right? Uh, and I think that would be uh like I've not been like very much following these companies, but I'm sure like they've already been using AI to drive or precisely target or with precision tell you like, hey, this is the next company or a prospect account that that
Mm-hmm.
is going to upgrade. Right, so why not
Yes.
give them a little nudge and take them to the finish line, right? So
Yeah.
uh,
Absolutely.
great, Satya. So moving on to the lightning round, which is the last section of the episode. So
Sure.
I already asked you like too many questions, but I'm just going to ask you like
Huh?
three more,
Go.
and then you have to answer like with whatever is on top of your mind, right? So starting with the first one, right? What's the one thing that you wish you would have known when you first started?
Yeah, yeah. I think if I had a coach or a mentor when I first started, I think I would have been 10x more successful. I think
Hmm.
people vastly underestimate the impact of a very solid, CEO coach or a founder coach or someone who actually went through your shoes a
Hmm.
couple of years ahead, right? Again, maybe those people are also busy, but if I had a coach that could mentor me from my very early days of starting, because I took a lot of time to learn.
Hmm.
Maybe it's my very nature. I took a lot of time to learn, but had a coach. See, one thing you have to know is even the people in the top 1 percentile in their field requires coaches. Look at people who go to Olympics or people who are like top 1 percentile in their sports. They also have absolute coaches, right? So are they not talented? Are they not skilled? No, I think there are certain behavioral aspects. There are certain aspects that a coach can double. So I would say if I go back
Hmm.
decades ago, I would love to get a mentor or a coach. Yeah.
Nice. That's a very interesting take. I'm sure like there's few people who after listening to this like would go and find a coach, or maybe they already if they already have one, they would have their faith reinstated on if they were losing in like why should I have a coach and all of that. Nice. On to the last one, right? So what's the one book recommendation that you have for the audience?
Um, I'm assuming your audience, your audience are mostly founders, CEOs, and SaaS
Hmm.
operators. I think recently I read a book which is Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel
Hmm.
Kahneman. I think it's an amazing book that
Yeah.
everyone should read because sometimes we make very fast decisions, sometimes we make slow decisions. I think there is a rationale why we make fast decisions and why we make slow decisions.
Hmm.
I felt it's an amazing book that gives you a deeper underpinnings of why we think fast and make decisions, and sometimes why we move slow. It's an amazing book, so strongly
Yeah.
recommend that everyone reads that.
Nice, nice. I've read it personally, and like definitely it's a great one for everyone, rather like not just like
Yes,
operators
yes,
or SaaS founders or anything, but I think it's
yes,
a good read for in general. Um,
yes.
all right. Awesome. Thanks Satya again for coming on and sharing all these insights with us, and like everything about PLG. And I'm sure like you're at the you're building like two companies which enable PLG to the core, right? So great stuff there. So thanks again, once again, to come on the show, take some time out and share all these insights.
No, really appreciate your time, and thanks for the opportunity, Sunil. I think in our case, we are building one company. Of course, like every other multi-product SaaS company, I believe most successful SaaS companies become multi-product. So we're a single company, two product lines, and looking forward to building a product adoption and engagement platform. We are very specifically focused on SaaS product teams, so that's kind of where we serve. But really, thanks for the opportunity. Yeah.
Awesome.